There we go. Okay. Black Eyed Peas. That we did. Let's get it started. Say it. I had talked to you on Monday about having a PowerPoint over quiz 2 and talking about that today. And I was looking at those. I extended the deadline because some of you hadn't sent email and so on. I needed to get them all put together, and I looked at them today, and there were a lot of issues. I thought it was going to be an easy kind of discussion, just talk about a few things. It seems like it would be a good idea to look at this in depth. And so I'll figure out, how to put that together. And I think on another good reason for waiting until Monday is that quiz 3 will be launched on Wednesday. So I'd rather this be a little more fresh in your mind. I think you guys on the whole kind of got it, but there were a lot of formatting problems, a lot of things that I did not expect. And we'll talk about that on Monday. And so, talk to you today about late antiquity and Byzantine art. And so, when we were here last, the last thing I showed you, the last piece of art from the Roman Empire, according to the chapter in the book, was the colossal head of Constantine. Last sculpture is what we saw. And Constantine is a turning point. It's a turning point in the Roman Empire, and everything changes with Constantine. I showed you the Arch of Constantine, and he was an emperor. And as far as the emperors goes, he was a good one. He was a great one. He was a great warrior. He was a great ruler. And he legalized Christianity in Roman Empire. Not only did he do that, it became the official religion of the Roman Empire, which was quite a change just some 300 years earlier. The Romans were killing Christians in the Colosseum, feeding them to the lions, as they say. They were persecuted, they were hunted down. It was illegal. It was, for a long time, Christianity was kind of an underground movement, an underground religion. We'll see some issues about that here in a minute. But Constantine changed everything. And he moved the capital of the Roman Empire from Rome to Byzantium, which is a city in Turkey. Today it's called Istanbul. They renamed it Constantinople. So it's an ancient city that has gone by 3 names over its history. And so it becomes Constantinople, the center of the Roman Empire, and Christianity is the religion. So, I got this picture. Best I could do. Saint Helena, finding the true cross. I want to tell you about this because I think it's important to understand the art and what changes in the Roman Empire. And so we're going to zoom in. the true cross. And here is somebody doing some archaeology, and see, he's digging this up and he's finding 3 crosses there, which is, if you know Christianity, Christ was crucified with 2 other convicts, you might say, 2 other people that were being punished by the Romans. And so anyway, Saint Helena, I want you to think about it. And what is, oh, I gotta get back here. I gotta move this. Saint Helena. Anybody know who Saint Helena is? No takers. Saint Helena is the Emperor Constantine's mother. And when Constantine moves the center of the Roman Empire to the east, and Christianity becomes the religion, the official religion, he sends his mother from modern-day Istanbul to the Middle East, to places through Syria, to modern-day Israel, sends her to Jerusalem to find artifacts and to find evidence of Jesus. So Saint Helena finding the true cross, that was a real thing. In early Christianity, they were trying to find everything that they could. She went down there, and as you saw, she brought archaeologists digging up what they thought was the true cross, the one that Christ was crucified on. They were trying to find other artifacts, trying to find where Jesus lived, where he was buried, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we're not really sure about the veracity, the truthfulness of what she found, because it was like 300 years after the death of Christ. And so a lot happens in 300 years. But that was a dig for the artifacts of Jesus. And since that time, artifacts have been a big part of Christianity. It's been a big part of Catholicism. Artifacts are huge. How many of you ever heard of the Shroud of Turin? Anybody? No? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's in Turin. It's a city in Italy. And in the Middle Ages, this thing showed up, and it's a linen cloth. And it supposedly had been stained with blood, and it was supposedly the cloth that,
oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Jesus' face when he was carrying the cross up, someone wiped out his face with your cloth.
That's exactly right, yes. Yeah, and he was wrapped in this shroud. She wiped off his face, and it left the image of Christ on it. And anyway, it shows up in Middle Ages, and it's in Turin. And so, Eddie, you're right on. Bottom line, that's an artifact, proof, tangible artifacts from Christianity, period. Now they've tested that cloth using carbon dating and stuff, and the results have been mixed. Partly, same kind of problems they have verifying, determining the age of cave paintings. Cave paintings are deep inside caves. How do you get there? How do you get there and see it? You got a torch, a fire on a stick, fire on a stick, smoke, carbon all over the years. Well, the Shroud of Turin had been caught in a fire at one point, not burned, but severely smoked. So it messed up the carbon dating. We don't know. But at any rate, that is start off as usual with the map on chapter 8. You see right here, Constantinople, Byzantium, Istanbul. It's right here. It's at the Darnell Straits between the Black Sea and go through here, the Mediterranean Sea. So it's there's another little town here called Nicaea. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute too. But here's the Roman Empire in the West, and it kind of just has the Balkans and Italy. All of the other stuff that the Romans had conquered, that's all gone. They're not in Spain, they're not in France, they're not in England anymore. So you can see this is the kind of the split: Western Roman Empire, Eastern Roman Empire. And so I'm going to go back in time a little bit. I told you what happens when Constantine takes over and it becomes the official religion. But this chapter starts, it goes back in time a little bit before Christianity was an accepted religion. It's kind of from the times when it was underground. And this is the interior of the synagogue, Dura Europos in Syria. And I'll show you on the map where that's at. That's like way over here. That's in Mesopotamia. And a synagogue, and it has biblical themes. And what is going on early on in Christianity was that it was aligned quite closely with Jewish tradition. Think about it. Jesus was Jewish. That was the religion. And this was before the Bible or any of this was written. We'll talk about that here a little later because Constantine actually starts to get some of that moving. But here it is, a wall painting. Samuel anoints David as king, King David. The Star of David on the Jewish flag, the six-pointed star. David who killed Goliath. David, the king of Israel. And so anyway, this is in the synagogue at Dura Europos. And here's the baptistry, Christian community house, Dura Europos. And so there, you see there's not much left. You know what a baptistry is, right? It's where you get baptized. And in early Christianity, baptism was actually more like this. See that? That's a big bath. You would be submerged in the water, just like Jesus was by John the Baptist in the River Jordan, you know, completely immersed. And some denominations of Christianity, they still do that. That's how you get baptized, not just a little sprinkle on the head when you're a baby or something, but a complete immersion in the water. But that's what this is. This is a baptistry. And Ark of the Covenant and two painted menorahs. And this is in Rome. And so the Ark of the Covenant, how many of you, I get all of these dated examples. Indiana Jones. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Carter.
This picture looks like a cheeseburger or a hamburger.
Yeah, it does. You should eat dinner before you come because you're seeing all.
So I get the reference to the namesake of this, but what is the idea? The Indiana Jones we have to call it.
Well, that's what this is here in the center is the Ark of the Covenant.
That's what he was looking for the whole time.
That's what he was looking for the whole time.
Oh.
And the reason I'm making a big point of this is that I told you about Saint Helena looking for the true cross. In ancient Christianity and in Judaism and in a lot of religions of the time, they believed that these artifacts had special powers. And if you know about the Indiana Jones film, that's really what that's all about. The Nazis are looking for this thing here because in the Bible it says that this is a very powerful thing. And if you bring it into battle with you, your enemies will just run away and lightning will strike them and everything. And so that was the same thing with the true cross. The idea of finding the cross that Jesus died on would have some special powers, some mystical powers. And that was the Raiders of the Lost Ark. And this thing is the Ark of the Covenant, was supposed to have the remains of the tablets that God gave to Moses of the 10 Commandments were housed in here. You know, it has a long history. But at any rate, catacombs. One of the things that they do in Rome at the time, and then they did in other places around Europe, especially in Paris, is that they buried their dead under the city. And catacomb, I was looking at the official dictionary meaning for that definition. Underground, subterranean gallery. And so this is really like a series of caves underground. And in some cases, these things are carved out, and a special person would have something like this. And these are very extensive. As a matter of fact, if you go to Rome today, you can take tours in the catacombs. And this is a very special one. And this is Christian iconography on this. More Christian, Judeo-Christian catacomb art. Catacomb of the Saints Peter and Barcellinus, Rome, early 4th century. And so I'll show you something here. This is early Christian iconography. And what would be in the center here? Barter. Yeah, like Jesus. Jesus, the leader of Christianity. That's him right there. This is an early depiction of Jesus. And what you'll see here in this chapter will be a lot of depictions of Jesus as the good shepherd. And that's what he has on his shoulders, is a sheep. And I don't know how much you guys listen to the Gospels or read the Bible or anything, but there is a story in the New Testament about Jesus telling a story about the Good Shepherd. And would a good shepherd abandon his flock to get that one sheep that went astray? And it's a parable. It's a story. It's about Jesus and how much Jesus cares for all of his sheep. And as a leader, as a shepherd, the good shepherd, that's what this is. The good shepherd, Jesus. And so anyway, this is the catacombs of, and they're all different kinds of images on here. The story of Jonah, I believe that's what this is. Jonah gets swallowed by the whale, and they always seem to make the whale look more like a sea serpent in these early depictions, but take my word, we've seen that on a sarcophagus or two as well. Orants, anybody know what an orant is? O-R-A-N-T.
Yeah, like
this word right there, orants.
oh, I think I just think I don't really know what that. Oh, yeah.
You see it here and there in different places around here. An orant is a female figure in prayer. And so they kind of show up a lot. Women praying. And see, we have it here. Sarcophagus was philosopher, orant, and Old and New Testament scenes. See, this is Jonah and the whale right here. And as I was saying a moment ago, they always make the whale look more like a sea serpent. And you might understand that if you lived somewhere out in the desert and you lived in a place that didn't really have whales. Whales are typically in the large oceans, the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, but not like real common. So all they get are the words, the text, the story of Jonah and the whale. And so that's why these depictions come up more like this, like a sea monster. And so philosopher, so that would be here, Old and New Testament scenes, and let me zoom in here. Oh, I wonder who this guy is. He's the Good Shepherd. That's Jesus. That's an early depiction. You don't see much in the way of crucifixes or the crucifixion. That comes a little bit later, but the early depictions of Jesus, Good Shepherd. And so some more catacomb art. This is kind of an interesting thing too. Let's zoom in on that. One of the things that we find in early Christian art, and really in early Christian belief, is that they don't really know how to depict him. And the idea of giving Christ a beard is a problem. How many of you most of the time when you see a modern day depiction of Jesus, what? He's got a beard, right? Got a beard, and he's got this other thing here too, a halo. And this is like a modern day depiction of Jesus. But there are two things that cause an issue here. One is that in ancient visual language, a beard meant wisdom, because That's what I'm talking about. That here. The philosopher here. He's got the beard. He's wise. Jonah, young man. Jesus, young man. No beard, but here he is. He's got a beard. Well, the beard depicts wisdom, which is kind of good. That's what it means. On the other hand, a beard also represents age. And if you know the story of Jesus, he died young. And that is part of the story. That's part of the catechism. That's part of Christianity, is that he died young. He did not live to be old. So how do you do this? He's wise and he's young. And so you have this conflict of how to depict it. And so anyway, but then what they do, you see, this is 370, 385. So we're getting like, this is after Christianity is accepted. We see the invention of the halo. And that helps solidify that. And here's another sarcophagus. And bottom line, I want you to pay attention to this thing, is that what we're talking about here with a lot of these works of art, they are connected to the dead, to those who have passed. And so this is a sarcophagus. This is a sarcophagus. We're still doing the same thing in terms of burying people as they did in Etruscan times, which was 150 BCE. And now we're talking 500 years later, and they're still burying people in sarcophagi. And again, this is why I put the star on here, because I thought this was probably the best example of Christ as a good shepherd. You know, we can talk about the paintings and stuff, but this is a very, very skilled depiction of Christ. In fact, it's employing a lot of the same techniques that the ancient Greeks used and the Romans used, and it's employed for Christian purposes. So like all of the things we talked about the drapery, about the weight of the feet, about the muscles and the face, and all of the natural. And that was really kind of the first idea of Christianity, was Christ as a good shepherd. Christ seated, 350, 375, Common Era, again, young, and the anastasis, the rotunda, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, 326, 335, Common Era. What the Holy Sepulchre is? Well, it's in Jerusalem, and it is the site where Saint Helena believed that Jesus was buried. And so he was buried in a sepulcher, and this is a site, and they put this church out right over the top of it. There's a couple of things I want you to kind of know about this. First of all, it's round. And much of the early Christian architecture is round. And there's a reason for it. And they typically have the altar on the inside, but in this side, it's kind of a reliquary. Reliquary meaning a place where they keep relics. And so anyway, the idea of worship at least in part, was centered around a prayer practice of circumambulation. That means that you walk around in a circle. And there are a lot of religions that practice circumambulation. We're going to look a little later in this course at a Buddhist stupa. And it's a round building, and you circumambulate, and you have stops along the way to say a prayer or do some devotion of some sort, and you go around. And that's what this is. If you're a Catholic, you will know that that actually got refined. And at Lent, there's a Catholic celebration, Stations of the Cross, where you relive the passion of the Christ. That is, when Christ was arrested, tried, and crucified and buried. And so there are different spots that you say prayers along that series of events. And it's, again, circumambulatory. Buddhists did that. There's a, how about the circumambulation, where in the Muslim tradition at Mecca, you guys know what I'm talking about? They go to Mecca, and masses of the people on the Hajj, which is a holy pilgrimage to Mecca, they circumambulate right there. I mean, they go around. That's how you pray. And so this is a tradition that's shared by many religions. This is a restored cutaway of old St. Peter's. One of the things that they try to do, and I just showed you circular spaces, I'm trying to figure out how to build churches now that begun 1319. It's really at the beginning of legal Christianity. And so this is old St. Peter's in Rome. But here, the interior of St. Costanza, and whoa, look what I'm talking about. Circular, circumambulatory. And you can see there's the altar, and there's a place. These are all places where one would pray. As I show you this Christian architecture, and I'll be showing you a lot, I want you to kind of keep this in mind. Early Christian churches did not have chairs. There was not a place to sit. In modern Catholic churches, there are pews. Today, but those are not permanent. Those are not pews. But at any rate, and see this vaulting. Talk about that archway, and they could kind of combine that with other arches and create vaults. Having a round building is really very conducive to having this kind of support system. As you can see, it supports this whole area and vaults on the side connected. And here we go. It's a Santa Costanza, and here's the floor plan. And there it is, ambulatory. And you can see all of these little niches, which would contain statues or votive candles or a combination of things. You would stop and pray. Move on, pray. Carter.
It looks like one of those ambulation things.
Roulette wheel.
Yeah.
Don't gamble with religion. That's all I got.
Oh yeah, yeah. It actually kind of does.
It does. Yeah. And there's an interesting thing. The wheel. Well, you're going to get me started on this, Carter, but the wheel, the roundness, I'm talking about other traditions and the Buddhist tradition of having a stupa, and it's round, and it's very, in a lot of ways, similar to this. The wheel is a symbol that's used in many religions. In this case, it's actually a building around that kind of idea. I wish Pulkit was here. Can you hear me, Pulkit?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good. Tell me about the flag of your home country.
Sir, I have a flag in my dorm too. It's like made up of 3 colors: saffron, then white, then green. So the flag,
Okay, how
yeah,
about what's in the center?
the center has which is known as chakra in Hindi. It's like a wheel, which is denoted
It
as
is a wheel, absolutely.
It's Gandhiji's. If you have heard of Mahatma Gandhi.
I can't. Can you guys hear him better than me?
Okay, so
I'm
he's
sorry,
known as.
we're having trouble hearing you, but I think you helped me out and made the point. The wheel. And there are a lot of traditions, and there's many religious traditions from India, to be sure. Buddhism, Hinduism, Muslim. But the idea of a wheel, the circle of life, that things go around, that they, anyway, you got me started. Thanks, Pulkit. And here is a vault, ambulatory vault, as I was saying. And we talked about this last time, and I gave you a hint that mosaics would become very important in Christian art. And these are mosaics. Incredible, incredible. The artwork, the design, the pattern, everything actually, in a lot of ways, has a wonderful geometric pattern to all of this. You see the circles here, big ones, and then the little ones, and then you see that negative space created by this. It's actually quite, I don't know. Would you say it's beautiful, Carter?
Yes.
I would too. It's amazing. And I want to point that out because that becomes a characteristic of this kind of art of late antiquity. And it's also a characteristic of Islamic art. Of course, they'll take the imagery out of it, but the idea of this kind of geometric model is in its own way, like the wheel, a proclamation of a truth. And here's a more or less a damaged mosaic, but you get an idea of what this looks like up close. And so, as the last one, this is large. It's kind of far away. It's up high, and it's in very good shape. I want to bring this up too, as another point. Christianity is finding its way. They're not sure how to depict Christ. They're not exactly sure which parts of the Bible are important. We haven't seen a crucifixion yet. And that's the main depiction in today's Christianity. The cross. Whether or not it's a crucifix and has the body of Christ on it, it's the cross. But look at this, Christ as Sol Invictus. Now, what the heck? Christ as Good Shepherd I can take, but Christ as Sol Invictus?
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Lily, you got a little bit of Latin, right?
Vaguely. Very vaguely. What is it called?
Sol Invictus. Okay, I'll give you a hint. Sol, it's a Latin word. Or son. Invictus. This is Christ as the sun god. And this is out of Roman mythology. And they say that this sun god as Sol Invictus may have originated in Syria, which kind of goes back Mesopotamia. It's an ancient idea. We see that happening in Egypt in a big way, the sun god. This is Christ as sun god. What? As I'm saying, they're trying to find out what Christianity is and how to best celebrate Christianity. So this is, it's late 3rd century. And so it's still when it's kind of dangerous to be a Christian. But let me kind of explain this, if I may. Early in Christianity, they were really, as I said a moment ago, trying to figure out, do you depict Christ as young or wise? One of the things that was happening in the early Christian church was how to get the idea across to viewers, non-believers, the idea of Christianity. So we got Christ as the sun god. Well, you know, all these Romans and Syrians and all of these people from the ancient Christ, the sun god. Yeah, I get it. They did a lot of things where they borrowed quite heavily from what ancient Roman and Mesopotamian and Greek cultures did. For example, when do we celebrate Christmas?
Birth of Christ.
Yeah. What
December
day?
25th.
December. How did they arrive at that? Yeah. Evelyn. No, I like that you're demonstrative. Yeah. You know how that evolved, or at least scholars believe this, is that there was a Roman holiday around that time in December. And if you kind of take a look at the calendar, and it's like the winter solstice is roughly around the 21st. And they had a celebration, they had a holiday for that time of the year. The Romans celebrated. And it was something like the evergreen holiday or something, and named after the fact that the only things that were green at the time were evergreen trees. But bottom line is that that was a ritual, that was a traditional Roman holiday. So when Christianity had to put a holiday for Christ's birth, they put it right over the top of the Roman holiday. How about Easter? It's in the spring. Resurrection, rebirth, new life. put that right over the spring equinox. And it falls roughly at that time. They did some adjustment to account for the lunar cycles, but bottom line is that a lot of things that are practiced in modern day Christianity have their roots in Roman holidays and festivals. And so they just laid it right over the top. This is no longer the evergreen holiday, it is Christmas. And so, and that's no longer the sun god. That's no longer Sol Invictus. This is Jesus. And you see, this is kind of interesting too, because it's almost as though he has sun rays coming out. And so this is the 4th century Common Era. And you see a lot of this stuff. This is Hercules and Bacchus. Still a lot of that old tradition still remains. We have two things going on, an underground Christian Judaic tradition emerging, and the ancient. And so here we go. This is what I wanted to get to. Suicide of Judas and the crucifixion of Christ. Plaques from a box. It's made out of ivory. And it's pretty small. It's only 3 inches by 3 7/8 inches. So it's just much larger. I mean, much smaller than what you see here. But you can see here, here's Judas. He hung himself. He betrayed Jesus, turned him in for 30 pieces of silver. And here is Christ. And here is the Roman soldier who punctures Christ's side. There was a part of the crucifixion. Let's see if he's really dead. And they stab him. You ever see that? Anyway, yeah, bottom line. Mary, John. This is kind of an interesting depiction because John was the youngest disciple. I mean, it's kind of old here, but here we go. Rex. What Rex means? King.
Yes.
Man, yeah.
I thought Rex and Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
Rex
King of the tyrant. Tyrant serpent. Yeah. Saurus is a rhinoceros. Saurus beast. Yeah. Tyrant animal king. Absolutely. And so what happens here, and this is the 5th century, and this is when Christianity is adopted, accepted, and this is kind of what the architecture moves to. I showed you this, I'll go back to it. This is the old St. Peter's, and it's really, you can see it's kind of built up. Area in the back, which is half of the dome. But that's kind of where Christian architecture will be for actually a long time. The same kind of setup. And again, as I was saying, no pews. In the early celebrations of Mass, people stood or kneeled on the floor. And if you go inside a mosque, it's the same thing. There may be a prayer blanket down, but you don't sit. And here's what it looks like from the outside. You see it's kind of stacked, hemispherical apse, and that's what they call that, apse, A-P-S-E, apsidial altar. And so another crucifixion, 432. See, we're moving forward. We're starting to see the crucifixion be depicted. And so some more, this is another mosaic from Rome, adoration of the Magi. Here's the baby Jesus. Here's the Magi coming in. Different scenes here. This, yeah, anyway. Parting of Abraham and Lot from the Old Testament. And again, same kind of thing. The vaulting comes right out of Roman architecture and mosaics. And this is in Ravenna, Italy. And this is kind of an interesting place because Ravenna is on the northeast portion of the Italian peninsula. And what's happening at this time? Rome is being sacked. They're at war. All of these people that were under Roman domination for centuries, as I showed you, there's nothing left on the west except the Italian peninsula itself. All of these tribes from the north, the Gauls, the Germanic tribes, others, they're coming in and they're basically plundering. They attack Rome, they haul off everything they can, they burn down a lot of stuff, they leave. But Ravenna kind of is off to the side. It's on the other side of the mountains. It's kind of isolated and it's under control of, and I forgot the name of these people. They weren't Romans, but bottom line is that Christianity was able to flourish here in Ravenna, Italy. And again, more of the same. This becomes the floor plan, apsidal, altar, columns, another layered story stacked, and mosaics. And so, with that, I want to get you let me make sure I got people on the share. Yeah, we're good. Byzantium, we're moving back to where Constantine was. And it says Byzantine Empire at the death of Justinian, 565. And so something happened here. They gained a lot of territory, and it was Justinian who did this. Now, this is at San Vitale, which is, again, at Ravenna. This is the church that Justinian built. But before we go there, let me tell you about Justinian and Theodora and how this all got there. First of all, go back to Constantine, and he worked pretty hard to kind of find all of the artifacts, sent his mom out to get all of the true cross and find out, mark these places where Jesus was buried, where he was crucified, everything that they could find. In 325, during the age of Constantine, they assembled the scholars of Christianity, and they met at a place called Nicaea. Evelyn, Oh, I don't know if it's in here. Well, come on. It's right here. And it's not too far away from Byzantium. There's Byzantium. There's Nicaea. And he gathered all these scholars, and he gathered up all of the artifacts that they could find. And they wanted to standardize Christianity. I was showing you how different depictions of especially the life of Christ, they were kind of all over the place, and some were infused with Jewish symbolism and beliefs, some infused with ancient Roman gods, Christ as Sol Invictus. Besides with Sol, S-O-L, that's the root word for sun. That's why when we talk about the sun, it's solar, S-O-L. Just say it. Bottom line, though, Constantine got these people together, and in Nicaea, 325, and they tried to codify all of Christianity. They wanted to collect all of the Gospels, and I'm not sure how much you guys are really into biblical history, but there are other Gospels out there. We see in the New Testament, King James Version, the Catholic Version, the New American Bible, 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And they were accepted as the true Gospels, the disciples that wrote about the life of Christ, and this is what we accept. But there were other Gospels out there, the Gospel of St. Thomas. There were other Gospels out there written by other disciples. These guys went through all of the stuff they could find and tried to figure out what was really accurate. That should go along with this religion. And so, like I said, they're getting the artifacts, they're actually getting as much as they can, all of the writings about the Bible, and they were putting this all together. And I can't ask you guys about what religion you are, but in the Catholic tradition, there's a part of the Mass, and it's called the Nicene Creed. And that's where this was developed, here at Nicaea. And it's kind of a long prayer, and it's recited at every Mass. And it basically outlines the things that you must believe if you are Christian. We believe in one God, Father the Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. It's how it starts. All that is seen and unseen. It goes on. It talks about believing in Jesus and the resurrection and so on. Bottom line, that came from here. And so what happens, as I was saying, these guys in this part, this is after Justinian, but before Justinian, these guys were getting clobbered in Rome and Ravenna. See, it's over here. It's on the Adriatic, and it was kind of out of the way. That's why we could build some churches. But Rome's getting hammered over here. And so this is what happens. This is what happened in the Western and the Eastern Roman empires. And there's a long history here that goes back. This is it's long and complicated, but as we have two centers of the Roman Empire, we eventually will get 2 centers of Christianity, eventually too. The Roman Catholic, if that's how you might have heard that referred to, and the center of Roman Catholicism is the Vatican. And then you got the Eastern Orthodox, and that's Christianity, Catholicism, and that's mostly practiced here. This way. So anyway, Nicene. And so what happens? We go through a couple of centuries. The Western Roman Empire, center of which is Constantinople, and they codified Christianity. They brought it to maturity, that it's a very well-defined thing. They got a Bible, they got iconography, they got standards, they have architecture. They have figured all this out, at least to a point. And so in year 532, right here, was Emperor Justinian, was in the line of emperors from Constantine forward. And what we had in Constantinople was called in January 13th, 532, big upset. Something that made January 6th, 2021 at the Capitol look like a cakewalk. But it was a violent protest and revolution. They were rioting in the streets. It looked like the empire was going to fall. These were called the Nika riots. And so much so that Justinian, the emperor, saw what was going on, and they're burning everything down, and they're fighting in the streets. They want to overthrow the government. He wanted to leave. Actually, had a ship waiting for him. Going to leave, going to go to Rome, going to get the heck out of here. But he had a wife, Theodora. And we're going to stay here. We're going to crush this rebellion. And it's called a Nika rebellion, so in some quarters. And we're going to get through this. And so he did, and they did. And at the end of that, Justinian was stronger, had more political power and more wealth and more military power than what he had before. He came out of that fight stronger. And so what he decided to do with this newfound strength, with this army, with his wealth, was that he was going to go back and reunite, rebuild the Roman Empire to its former glory. And it says this is Byzantine Empire at the death of Justinian. They don't even call it the Roman Empire anymore. It's the Byzantine Empire based on Byzantium. And they retook all of this. And one of the places that Justin and Theodora stopped was in Ravenna. And they built magnificent churches, Church of San Vitale especially. But they went and they pretty much secured Rome, much of North Africa, Egypt, Syria. They reclaimed all of this. And this was the last hurrah of the Roman Empire, because upon Justinian's death, things kind of fell apart. We started to see other forces at work. But at any rate, that's where they were. And Justinian as world conqueror. There he is. And this church of, look, I'm going to pass this up here, move to San Vitale. Here it is. This was something Justinian had a hand in building. And this was the new Christian architecture. And you can see it's something of an octagon, but it's still set up for circumambulation. Number 3, the apse. That's where the altar is. That's the hemispherical niche. And this is the inside San Vitale. And this is the mosaics. You see, he used everything at his disposal. I'm going to show you another thing that he started too when we come back. Maximus was the bishop that was in Ravenna when Justinian appeared. But here, Justinian, Bishop Maximus, and attendants. Mosaic on north wall of the apse, San Vitale, Ravenna, Italy. And Theodora, Empress Theodora. And in the Catholic tradition, these guys, both of them, go by Saint Justinian, Saint Theodora. And I talked about Helena finding the true cross, Saint Helena in the Catholic tradition. And so, but we have this last hurrah of the Roman Empire. And when we come back, we'll talk about this. So, any questions? Are you guys going to have a good weekend? Good.
Hey, I will try.
Good. Yeah. Try your best. And so, Byzantine, got Byzantine on the mind. See you then.
Okay. Yes.
Your friend must be. I'm going to bring it up.
Monday?
Monday.
Okay.
I got to go back. See, yeah, how should I say this? What number 3?
About 93, 95.
Something. Yeah. I had to go back to this like 3 times. And mostly I was bumping them up.
Gotcha.
And so, because I was thinking, see, some of them were like, yours was pretty good. Some of these were not anything like what I'd asked for. And so after I started rating them, those were really low. And I think even the good ones have a little something that's not exactly to the prompt.
All right. Well, I guess we'll learn about it Monday then, and then I can always ask if I have questions after Monday.
Yeah, let me get that out there.
Okay.
And I'd be happy.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You bet. Hey, and thanks for paying attention. I can tell you're like listening. I love it.
Yeah.